Paladins Open Beta 59 is just around the corner and it's bringing a new flanking champion called Talus, but today I just want to go over all of the other changes that have happened with this patch, the nerfs, the buffs, the quality of life fixes, and the skins coming to the realm this time round. Anyway, I'm just going to jump straight in. One of the biggest changes is a rework to the mounts. Now, they've said that they've added a system which will make the mount change direction to match where your character is moving, and also giving a free look around the character when mounted and stationary, which is important. However, what's happening at the moment seems very jerky. It doesn't really seem very smooth, so you can still look a little bit with your mount at the moment whilst it's moving. However, the mount still turns with you, and even though you're trying to free look, you can also, well, look backwards on your mount, but what happens is that you get stuck having to press backwards rather than forwards with your movement, as for some reason it seems that it's tied so when you're looking backwards the game thinks that you're moving forwards. I don't know whether it's just the mount bugging out itself, but you can currently look backwards, but you have to weirdly use your keyboard to try and react to it. Personally, I just prefer just scrap the idea of having it still, just have free look. Why not? Make the mounts quite important, and denying mounts a big deal, and have free look the whole way through, and just use your WASD keys or your left thumbstick, your analog stick, if you're on console, to move the mount, and then look around in a free look all of the time. Or perhaps even add some sort of like alt fire, like when you alt fire using it, you can hold down alt fire to look around, or something like that could work out very well. Although I think it's a step in the right direction and can be very useful and just sort of less visually weird with trying to look around a corner or something whilst you're mounted, and generally just making mounts a bit more valuable. Another interesting change is that chat now persists after the game ends, so you can see what everyone said. It just doesn't disappear like it did before, which was really annoying if you were trying to type something out or say something. And also, you'll know now whether a player has left or not when you get into the lobby chat. So if you're having a quick chat with somebody and they get into another match and leave, and you're just sat there talking to yourself, you don't have to feel as embarrassed as you might do otherwise, or be sat there talking to nobody. Another nice little quality of life is when you build decks with cards, the cards that you already are using will turn grey, which is just something that was needed for quite a while. They have also introduced overtime to Onslaught, which personally I'm not really that fond of, because Onslaught was kind of my go-to very quick warm-up match where if one team won, it didn't really matter. It wasn't a very serious mode. You just, well, the team won. But now if you contest the point, the other team, where the other team would win, you'll instead enter overtime, and basically during the overtime respawn times will gradually increase, but you still have a chance to try and contest. I don't know, I personally like the short and sweetness of Onslaught. Even if you're losing massively, then whatever, it's going to be over very shortly, whereas this can give you maybe some false hope. But I think the interesting thing is the increased respawn times. Previously they had added in automatic voice lines where things came up, where if somebody was behind you, so where if somebody's taking damage or been flanked, they might shout out. Now there's more of those, and it is actually very noticeable as a lot of characters are shouting out during the match. So getting into the nitty-gritty balancing changes, one big thing is that they've disabled the system of diminishing returns for crowd control. So basically, after your first crowd control effect, like a stun for example, the second stun before would have been reduced slightly, and the subsequent basically effects would be reduced, so you couldn't basically have the same effect all the time, and it acted like a bit of an inbuilt resilience after that first crowd control effect. However, they're completely getting rid of this, and it buffs the stun characters and all the crowd control characters like Ash, Bomb King, Maldamba. Think of all the stun snakes going to be going out, just because your stun or your crowd control is always going to go off and be consistent. It does make resilience, the item, a bigger pickup, and that's quite nice to balance that out. Although I think resilience has been quite a good pickup, seeing as Ash has been so good and Bomb King gets picked up quite a bit, and Maldamba can be seen, so it's not necessarily been a bad pickup at all recently anyway. But once you get the resilience, it should basically counteract it all the time anyway, in a similar way that this diminishing returns did. Another big change, and something that's quite useful to a lot of characters actually, is that abilities that previously required the player to be standing on the ground will now instead require the player be quite close to the ground. It's actually quite lenient, as I've been placing some barrack turrets at, you know, like a jumping height. Sometimes when you fall off a wall or something, it allows you to just jump around and place things down or use abilities that would have been cancelled otherwise. And sometimes if you get knocked back and you come towards the ground, you can jump away before somebody can shoot at you, and it gives more value to a lot of the escape abilities. Personally, I think both of these are quite nice little touches. So the big bada boom this patch with balancing is Torvald. He's been completely and utterly reworked pretty much. Some things have pretty much gone, so his main attack, his main gauntlet weapon, has been reworked so it's no longer a beam. What it does is it now fires projectiles that deal 200 damage every 0.25 seconds. They're a bit like Sarah's projectiles, but I think they're a little bit faster it seems, and with that you can be doing 800 damage every second, and I'll tell you that it actually is pretty hefty. In-game, especially with Torvald's relative tankiness. His gauntlet doesn't have any damage drop-off, the 200 damage I forgot to mention, but that's a big deal, so you can put a lot of damage into a little space, an area, like you can focus down and deny people coming around corners and things like that. You can just basically do poke damage into the backlines and quite reliably. One big negative change is the recharge, so it no longer drains enemy shields, which kind of takes away a lot of the current Torvald's system of play, where he'd be going against two of the other frontliners, taking away their shields, and that would be one of the big things he'd do in the game. Now that doesn't do any of that. It only brings up your own 2,500 shields again. Runic Blast has just been removed from the game and has been replaced by a recharge that has been moved over. So Nullify now is the new alt fire, and this is like your beam, and basically it focuses the power of your gauntlet and channels a beam on the enemy, a single enemy, so you can't silence an area now for 2.5 seconds. It should silence them, although in the PTS it seems to be quite buggy, sometimes it doesn't silence at all, and it should do 800 damage over the duration, but that's 800 damage over 2.5 seconds, and remember, your normal damage per second is 800 every second if you hit the projectiles, so the damage per second isn't very good, but you can silence people, and you know, it can be useful. And basically all the cards relating to Runic Blast now moved over to Nullify, so Direct Current now adds 500 damage to Nullify, so you can have a bit of burst there. There is currently a bug where you use your Nullify and you can drain health at 200 every tick, so every one of your little beam ticks. So it's almost like a Sarah's heal on yourself, but the card says 200 at the start of your ability, so I think that's just a bug. Also, Torvald's tankiness has been completely reduced, going from 5,000 health to 3,500. So effective health 5,500 with that shield. Basically, Torvald's been completely turned around to something a bit more like Ruckus, sitting in the back lines, being a bit of an off-tank, being able to put the shields on your allies still from a distance, but also having that poke damage into your enemies. I do think, though, that the Nullify is a bit worse than Runic Blast. It's quite difficult to keep it on an enemy, but then again, in the PTS, it is a bit buggy, so it could just seem worse because of that. But I was really struggling to keep it on an enemy. Even if you get close up, then they can probably get away from you, jump behind cover or something, break the line of sight, and then your silence is over, and you've not really done much damage, and you've not really achieved an awful lot. Some people aren't going to be happy with this, and maybe preferred how Torvald was, and it is kind of weird to take away the draining in Recharge. It kind of gets rid of the original concept of Torvald, but I mean, with his ultimate, which is quite powerful, depending on the map, and his newfound ability to do some damage, I think he might actually be picked up a little bit more than he has now, but I don't know whether the health and his tankiness taking such a hit might make him less of a pickup. The other rework is to Androxus. What they've done is not necessarily to my liking. As somebody that really loved Androxus, but hasn't really played them because they've been in a bit of a meh place, because flankers at the moment are a bit meh. See, Hi-Rez are trying to make flankers have more damage per second and more burst damage up close. The idea there was with Lex to change his fire speed and basically DPS if you're right in somebody's face, instead of having the hypermobility that the champions did a few patches ago. Now, the thing is, before that change went through, there was kind of a dive meta being played by the Chinese teams in the esports scene, but it still wasn't exactly completely wrecking the meta or anything like that, and I just thought that, well, they had two sort of strains, whereas now it's sort of just a double tank, double damage with one flanky damage dealer and a healer. Although, you know, some of the flankers okay now, like Xin is alright, Maeve can be okay, But the changes to Lex and I think to Androxus aren't quite there. And the thing is, it changes the revolver a lot. So it's now semi-automatic, like the Lex one. And the maximum fire rate is increased from 0.5 to 0.36 seconds. Damage reduced from 600 to 580. Well, that's actually quite a sizable damage per second increase. However, the recoil is increased, and the animation is horrible on the pistol. I mean, awful. And it also loses accuracy when fired at maximum speed. So you do kind of want to get close to an enemy to do your complete burst. And even if you're poking at an enemy, you're going to be doing less damage than you were before, because you're going to be having to control the weapon, and relatively you're going to be doing less damage. We'll just have to see. I haven't played a lot with it because I just didn't really feel like I enjoyed how the weapon felt, so I haven't really come back to it. But without people on PTS picking up 3 flankers, it's hard to tell how well the Androxus actually plays at the moment. But I think a lot of people are going to be upset that the flick shots are gone. I'm looking at Prince Danny, people like that. One flat out buff is to Inara, and Inara has been alright actually in the last patch. She can be a good main tanker. And the thing is, because of the bans, the Makoa and another tank might be banned out, so the Inara could have been a pickup anyway. But she's actually been buffed to be more of an option here, and so the time between shots reduced from 0.2 to 0.15 seconds. It's going to be easier to land all of your shots on an enemy. Only slightly though, but it just makes it easier to fire, so your shots are close together, so you don't have to lead and just judge between the shots as much as you did before. Also, the self-inflicted slow reduced from 40 to 30%, and duration reduced from 0.8 to 0.5 seconds, so you basically move faster whilst you're firing, and your shots are much more reliable to hit off. So it's only a tiny nudge to Inara, but maybe that tiny nudge is enough to push her a bit more forwards in the lineup. Tyra has also seen a buff to their nade launcher. The projectile size is increased by 16% and projectile speed from 270 to 400. Now, the nade legendary is actually used quite a lot, and being able to make sure that you can always hit this or hit it more reliably is quite a big deal. So a little nice nudge to Tyra, but whether or not she'll be one of the best damage champions in this patch, I don't think that she's quite there. But hey, depending on the map and who you're against, the Molotov cocktail can do quite a lot, and into your nade, which does extra damage the lower an enemy is, it could be a great finisher and wombo combo. Xin has had a bug fix, but effectively a nerf. So basically there's a bug where he would not enter combat if he absorbed a hit with counter, but did not hit an opponent. Basically, it's going to be a bit harder to use your counter and go into billow, because before you could counter, just swing away, getting hit by whatever projectiles, then go into your billow, and because of the time during your counter, you'll be very close to being out of combat, so you'll heal up in your billow anyway, so you don't really need to use a billow legendary card. So that's actually quite a big hit to Xin, where I don't really think he needed a nerf. He was actually, as a flanker, in a decent spot and was being picked up a bit more this patch. One interesting nerf was actually brought up on Reddit as a big thread. People were complaining about the Konoichi skin being a lot quieter than the other skins, and were saying it was actually the pay-to-win skin in the game. Because like this, the sound when you enter and leave stealth was like a woo sort of thing. It was lower, but they basically increased the volume of Sky leaving stealth now on that skin. So it's actually interesting that they've responded to this one and buffed it. I thought it was something obscure that they might miss, but they've obviously taken the hints from the community here, and that's a nice big thumbs up from me. Anyway, that's all of the nerfs and buffs. Again, the CC champions with stuns and things will get slightly better this patch until people pick up resilience. The flankers might have actually a better time now, because Torvald has been reworked to be more of a pickup, so they'll be getting the field study more often, being able to dive a bit more, so maybe there will be a bit more of a dive meta with the Torvald being picked up more often. But I do still wonder about the change to Androxus. It just doesn't feel like Arandroxus. Hashtag not Arandroxus. No, I don't know. I was one of the biggest fans of Androxus and played him a lot when I started out Paladins, but just haven't been back to him as he hasn't really been in the meta the past few patches. So some other changes to gameplay is on the map. So Jaguar Falls, they removed 2 pillars next to stairs in front of the spawn room. I don't know why they've done that one actually. It was kind of some cover for the defenders and not a lot of cover. It means that you have to go left or right, and the center is almost not really covered unless if you go down into the bottom level. The one on Frozen Guard, they've widened the top flank route on the right. Well, actually not on the right because you could go right or left, but basically next to the capture point. And you can also go over the trees where before it was on basically above where that was at flank route, and you can go over there with a lot of the champions. The widening is actually okay. It was quite a choke point and quite difficult for a lot of champions to go on that side. It actually gives a lot of champions with mobility more ways to move around and jump about. And they also removed a really annoying ice block that blocked the way on the stairs from the spawn room. You go over the bridge thing, and then you jump down, and then you want to go up the stairs to go into the ice tunnel, and you'd get stuck on that ice block. Now they got rid of that. Thank goodness. That's actually a massive plus. On Timber Mill, they removed some cover on the rooftops overlooking the capture point. It's actually just some barrels in the middle. I guess it kind of nerfs the snipers a little bit in their options on the top of there. I'm not entirely sure why, but hey, that's just a tiny change really. Finally, they've re-added in District, a test map that was previously in the game ages ago. It was actually Atrium, was maybe before or after District last time, which is now Bright Marsh in Paladins. I actually quite like District, and I can't remember how much it's been tweaked, but the map seems to work quite well. It's actually got like two opposing sort of like buildings, almost like towers, where you've got 3 levels fighting on either side of the points for the point fight. It's quite claustrophobic on the point, but it's interesting that you have the verticality and the fighting between the 2 buildings on either side. So yeah, this is actually a little bit of a plus for me. Finally, in customizations, they've got some big ones this time. It's a pirate theme, so they've got the Swashbuckler Barrack, which is pretty awesome. I think I'll cover these in a video. I might do some gameplay with them. The Makoa Dutchman, which I've been playing in this gameplay, and I think actually the barrack was used as well. The Knesset's got the Star Silver, which is a VIP one, and they've added dancers into the game. So the Lex has a bad cop. It looks ridiculous. Sholin has the top rock, and Ying has a belly dance, which is, yes. One of the first 2 this time around was a community skin, which is a Sarah's Infernal, which is a sort of a demon succubus type skin, and the voice lines are quite lewd, folks. They were quite lewd. It's kind of what you would expect from a succubus. And just to mention, the pirate skins are in the booty box chest. Gotta get that pirate booty. Anyway, that was pretty much patch OB59 or Open Beta 59 coming to the realm, and it should be live next week on PC, and in maybe 3 or 4 weeks for PS4 and Xbox One. If you want to play it now, it's on the PTS. I've got videos in my guide section on how to get that to work. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe for more of my content, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching, everybody. Joshino.